I'll never forget the sight of those flashing red and blue lights bouncing off the pine trees that morning. Through my cabin window, I watched Officer Daniels step out of his patrol car, his face a mixture of confusion and annoyance. And there she was, Patricia Elmsworth, our self-appointed HOA queen, jabbing her finger at my mailbox like it had personally offended her ancestors. "Officer, I demand you remove this eyesore immediately," she screeched, her voice carrying through the crisp mountain air. "It's a danger to our community's standards." Officer Daniels looked at my handcrafted cedar mailbox, then back at Patricia, then down at the citation book in his hand. What happened next made my entire week worth it. He started writing, but not the citation Patricia expected. Her triumphant smile melted faster than snow in July when he tore off the paper and handed it to her instead. Let me back up a bit. I bought this cabin in Pine Ridge Estates 3 months earlier, seeking peace and quiet away from the city. The property came with all the charm of mountain living, towering evergreens, a babbling creek, and unfortunately, an HOA run by Patricia Elmsworth, a woman who treated the neighborhood bylaws like they were carved in stone by Moses himself. My first encounter with Patricia happened the day after I moved in. I was installing my mailbox, a beautiful piece I'd carved myself from reclaimed cedar, complete with a small bear silhouette on the side. I'd barely tightened the last screw when I heard the clicking of heels on gravel. "Excuse me," came a voice dripping with false sweetness. I turned to see a woman in her 50s, dressed like she was heading to a corporate board meeting rather than walking through a mountain neighborhood. "I'm Patricia Elmsworth, president of the Pine Ridge Estates HOA. That mailbox needs to go." I straightened up, wiping sawdust from my hands. "Nice to meet you, Patricia. I'm Jake Morrison. What seems to be the problem with my mailbox?" Her lips pursed like she'd bitten into a lemon. "The problem is that it doesn't conform to our community standards. All mailboxes must be black metal, standard USPS approved design. That thing," she waved dismissively at my handiwork, "is an eyesore." I kept my tone pleasant, though I could feel my jaw tightening. "I see. Could you show me where in the HOA rules it specifies the exact mailbox requirements? I'd be happy to review them." Patricia's eye twitched. "I don't have the handbook on me, but trust me, I know the rules. You have 7 days to replace it, or you'll be hearing from our legal team." She click-clacked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there wondering what I'd gotten myself into. That evening, I dug out the HOA rulebook from the pile of closing documents. I spent 2 hours combing through it, searching for mailbox specifications. What I found was interesting. The only mention was a vague line stating, "Mailboxes should maintain aesthetic harmony with the neighborhood character." Nothing about black metal, nothing about standard designs. The next few weeks became a masterclass in passive-aggressive warfare. Patricia left notes on my door, each one escalating in tone. First came the friendly reminder about mailbox compliance, then the second notice threatening fines. By the third week, she was photographing my mailbox from different angles like she was building a legal case. She even tried to rally the neighbors against me. I watched from my porch one afternoon as she went door to door with a clipboard, no doubt collecting signatures for some petition. Most people just nodded politely and closed their doors. My neighbor Tom even gave me a sympathetic wave afterward. Things escalated when Patricia started getting creative with her complaints. She claimed my mailbox was too close to the road, so I measured it. It was exactly where the Postal Service required. She said the wood could attract termites that would infest the neighborhood. I showed her the certificate proving it was treated cedar, naturally termite resistant. She argued the bear carving could scare children. I pointed out that actual bears lived in these woods. Each time I calmly refuted her claims, Patricia's face would turn a deeper shade of red. She wasn't used to people standing up to her reign of terror. According to Tom, who'd lived here for 10 years, most people just gave in to avoid the hassle. But I'd spent 3 weeks carving that mailbox, and I wasn't about to replace it with some generic metal box just to appease a power-hungry HOA president. The situation reached its peak on a Thursday morning. I was enjoying my coffee on the deck, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold when the peace was shattered by sirens. Not just any sirens, but the urgent wail of a police car racing up our normally quiet road. My first thought was that someone had a medical emergency. Then I saw the patrol car stop directly in front of my house. Officer Daniels emerged, looking like a man who'd rather be anywhere else. Patricia was already there, having apparently been waiting for this moment. She'd actually called 911 over a mailbox. The sheer audacity of it made me set down my coffee and walk over, curious to see how this would play out. Officer, thank goodness you're here, Patricia began, her voice pitched with manufactured urgency. This man has created a public safety hazard with his non-compliant mailbox. It's a threat to our community standards and property values. I need you to issue a citation immediately and force him to remove it. Officer Daniels, a man who looked like he'd seen it all in his 20 years on the force, slowly turned to examine my mailbox. He walked around it once, twice, then looked at Patricia with barely concealed irritation. Ma'am, you called 911 for this? You do realize that's for emergencies, right? Life-threatening situations, crimes in progress? Patricia huffed indignantly. This is a crime in progress. He's violating HOA regulations, which is a breach of contract. That's practically fraud. I stepped forward, keeping my voice calm and respectful. Officer, I'm Jake Morrison. I live here, and this is my mailbox. I've reviewed the HOA guidelines thoroughly, and there's nothing that specifically prohibits custom mailboxes. In fact, the rules only mention maintaining aesthetic harmony, which I believe my handcrafted cedar mailbox does quite well in a mountain setting. Do you have a copy of these HOA rules? Officer Daniels asked. I do, I said. Would you like to see them? Patricia interjected quickly. That won't be necessary. As HOA president, I can tell you exactly what the rules state. Actually, Officer Daniels said, holding up a hand, I'd like to see the written rules if you don't mind, Mr. Morrison. I retrieved the rule book from inside and handed it to the officer. He flipped to the section on property maintenance, found the single vague sentence about mailboxes, and read it aloud. Then he looked at Patricia. Ma'am, this doesn't say anything about black metal mailboxes or standard designs. It just mentions aesthetic harmony. Looking around at all these pine trees and mountain views, I'd say a wooden mailbox fits right in. Patricia's face was turning an alarming shade of purple. But I'm the HOA president. I interpret the rules. That may be, Officer Daniels said, pulling out his citation book. But calling 911 for a non-emergency is a misuse of emergency services. That's actually illegal, unlike this gentleman's mailbox. The look on Patricia's face was priceless. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air as Officer Daniels began writing. Furthermore, he continued, still writing, Mr. Morrison, have you been receiving repeated harassment about this mailbox despite it not violating any written rules? I have, I confirmed. Multiple threatening letters, constant photography of my property, and attempts to turn neighbors against me. Officer Daniels nodded and kept writing. Ma'am, that could constitute harassment. I'm issuing you a citation for misuse of emergency services. That's a $500 fine. And if Mr. Morrison decides to file a harassment complaint, you could be looking at additional charges. Patricia's hand shook as she took the citation. This is outrageous. I'm trying to maintain property values. I'm trying to keep this neighborhood from turning into a circus. The only circus I see here, Officer Daniels said dryly, is someone calling 911 over a perfectly legal mailbox. I'd suggest you find better ways to spend your time than harassing your neighbors over non-issues. He turned to me. Mr. Morrison, if she continues to bother you about this mailbox, which clearly doesn't violate any written rules, you can file a harassment complaint at the station. Keep all the letters and document any incidents. Thank you, officer, I said, trying not to smile too broadly. Patricia stood there, clutching her $500 citation, her carefully constructed authority crumbling around her. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, she sputtered. That's your right, Officer Daniels said, getting back into his patrol car. But I'd advise you to read up on what actually constitutes illegal activity before making any more emergency calls. Have a nice day, folks. As his patrol car disappeared down the mountain road, Patricia turned to me, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. This isn't over, she hissed. But as she stomped back to her house, citation in hand, we both knew it was. Word travels fast in a small community. By that afternoon, everyone knew Patricia had called the cops over my mailbox and gotten herself fined instead.